Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Octopath Traveler 0. As the name would suggest, this is a prequel game to Octopath Traveler 1 and 2. We are revisiting the world of Osterra once again. Take control of a customizable silent protagonist and fight back against the three main antagonists of the game. Each villain represents wealth, fame, and power respectively, and they reap destruction on your hometown, leading you on a path to facing them. Unlike previous games, your customized player character is going to be in your party throughout the whole game as you follow the many companions. The game, however, tries to keep the identity of the gameplay that the series is known for. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat? Is this game not just a modern throwback? I mean, we've got the last one, Octopath Traveler 2, but they just always nail the aesthetic of like modern JRPG pixel art, and it's always really, really nice to look at. Don't you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's one of the more unique openings for a video game, especially when it opens in total silence. It drops like a poetic note about becoming anyone and going anywhere, and then hands you the pin and says, make yourself. And that's where, for the first time in this series, you are the protagonist, customizing everything from your look to your voice to even your favorite dish, which, Henrik, I gotta say, I spent an embarrassing amount of time on it was some kind of personality test. I needed it to be so right. And then did you find yourself making yourself as the pixelated character, or did you just go completely off the rails?
No, I just did something that wasn't entirely me. It was maybe reminiscent of me, like a fantasy idealized version of myself, I guess you could say.
Right.
Then again, though, I did choose pickles as my favorite food, and I like pickles in real life, but not that much.
Yeah, I mean, you start from nothing. You basically have to pick a childhood skill, and then you choose from like 3 sentimental belongings, and then you step into the world as a complete unknown with this main character energy waiting to happen. And then that's where I kind of wonder, like, how were you vibing with the idea that there isn't an established character to play, and then you are given this kind of creative choice to mold the story? Did you feel like that was a smart move, especially for a prequel?
Yeah, it is an interesting choice to divert away from what the series has done before. So I appreciate the risk that they took, but there's definitely pros and cons when it comes to that sort of thing, because like with the previous games, you're playing as a character that's already crafted by the developers, and they kind of have an idea of what they want to tell for the story for the character. Whereas when you're the character, like you made the character from scratch, you almost put yourself in the shoes of that character in a different way, and you can get a little bit more of a bond with the character, though at the same time the rest of the game has to follow suit and be on the same level of storytelling. And sometimes I'd say, it was pretty good about doing that. But at the same time, this is a very long game.
Yeah. Oh, it's really long. It's too long.
Yeah. And when there's characters that get introduced that are in such a long game, and I don't really care about them by the time that they're done with their storyline, that's a little bit of a problem.
I think some old school gamers will be okay with it. I mean, especially since we grew up with like Pokemon games. It's not necessarily like they're dropping you in as Ash Ketchum. You are, the Pokemon trainer. And so that's where some of that nostalgia kicks in. I thought it was a little strange, but then I get where they were going for, because, really with Octopath Traveler 0, it's really about, gamer, freedom, in a sense. And, things go from this cozy village to absolute devastation fast when, Wishvale, the city that you are born in, is destroyed by those powerful figures who show up, hunting rings. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. And then
No, I immediately thought Lord of the Rings with the
Well,
premise of hunting
I
these
mean,
dragons.
what's crazy too? It's like 22 years ago today, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King came out. That's why I thought of that when
Oh
we were
well, actually,
prepping for the show.
that's a good point.
So I was like, I feel like we've heard these stories before, but then your parents are killed. The ring of the flame bringer makes you a ring bearer, and then all of a sudden you're on this long road collecting divine bling and untangling human greed across multiple chapters. And so, Henrik, does this chosen one setup still hit for you, or does it feel like familiar territory with like this fresh coat of paint in a sense?
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of JRPGs from the era that they're trying to emulate. Like
Yeah.
my immediate thought is the Golden Sun series, which is
Oh,
one of my
yeah.
favorite series from the GBA. And it does a pretty good job at emulating that. But at the same time, I also couldn't help but feel at times like the game didn't really respect my time. And I get it, when you're looking back at games from the era that it's emulating, I mean, a lot of those games kind of didn't always respect your time because they expected you to have nothing else to play but that game.
Kind
So
of
you had
sounds like
almost
a
no
mobile
choice.
game, wouldn't you say, Henrik? Which,
Right.
I think.
Which is going to be my next point. This kind of it is a retelling of the mobile game Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent.
Right.
So
And when has mobile
you
gaming
have
ever
that.
respected your time? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's what I was getting at. If it's a mobile port in a sense, not
Yeah.
really a port, but like directly a port, but it
Yeah,
has
they
the
expand
mobile
on it.
flair to it at the same time.
Yeah, very true. And they took a risk this time around. You used to have 4 character, battles, in between. Now they increased it to 8 characters that are in the battle.
Mhm.
So that's like, and then you get that option to be able to constantly swap out party members to exploit, weakness, heal, buff, and then, turn chaos into control. And, yeah, you have the 4 in the front, 4 in the back, and you constantly keep swapping them out. So there is that like bit of like playful rhythm
Yeah,
to the fights.
and that is a fun mechanic to have that many characters on the field at once from your side of the field at least. But I also felt like they could have utilized it a little bit more than and they didn't actually utilize it. It was like not that many times where I felt forced by the game to change up my style in
Yeah.
fights. And what I mean by that
Until you
is
get to the
like
very end, I
there's
would say, but
exactly like towards the end, there's fights you'll go across where they'll make it so like, oh, you can't swap these characters from front to back and so forth anymore for like a couple set of turns.
yeah,
And that is something that actually is interesting to see because at that point then I have to adapt to that. Whereas, you know, then the entire rest of the game up until those fights, I
yeah.
felt like I was just a god almost having that many characters on the screen.
Yeah, and then also I think it's important to reference to the gamers who haven't jumped into the game yet. You have over 30 travelers available. I mean, some party members I felt like were really cool collectibles, and then
Mhm.
that some of them weren't really like fleshed out. They weren't fully
Yeah.
realized companions, and that's where Henrik. It's like, did you find yourself choosing teammates for the vibes? Because that's how I felt. Like I wasn't really worried about the stats so much. I feel like that kind of takes away from the story investment in a sense when it's just like, I can't keep track of
Yeah.
all 20, 30 of these guys. I was like, whoever can work for me works for me. I'm vibing with you. Sure. Let's grab you. I'll take you
Mhm.
on.
And it is a little bit of a detriment that they did that in some respect at least because like yeah everyone kind of typically in this kind of game has their set party members that they really like to just always have with them minus maybe a couple to he has like a flex slot to swap in and out depending on the situation. And me, I was no exception to that. But then you get certain things like there's a character you need to get a support skill from to break through the damage cap.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't actually in my preferred list of characters to party up with. So I had to go and spend all this investment time in getting that support skill so that I could actually, not do the minimum damage of 9,999 and could go beyond that. And then there's also a point in the game where you actually go up against a boss where every character you have comes out at one
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
And if you're not really playing with
Familiar
every
with
character,
it.
that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I guess that's where they're trying to utilize like every aspect of the game, and sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like the problem with the game too is like I feel like other people have said this about this game compared to Octopath Traveler 2. It feels like several games all smashed together at once. But you
Yeah.
know, for gamers that really love that signature 2.5 HD look, well, it's back. It looks really crispy with those, you know, pixel characters against those gorgeous lightings and environments that feel nostalgic without feeling dusty. Wouldn't you say, Henrik? I mean, there's,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know, every
Yeah.
town,
The aesthetic is
dungeon.
unbeatable.
Yeah, exactly. Like every town, dungeon, and cutscene looks like it belongs on the Game Boy Advance, I would say. And so,
Mhm.
is this still one of the most visually charming styles in modern JRPGs, or is it starting to lean too hard on comfort?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess that kind of leads into the question on whether it's a pause for us or a repeat, Chris. Because I
Yeah.
mean, for me, I enjoyed it, but I don't think that it's going to be a repeat for me, which is unfortunate because I really liked 1 and 2. So hopefully they don't do the same mistakes they did here with the next game in the series. What about you, though, Chris?
Yeah, like I gave Octopath Traveler 2 a pause when we did that review, and I'm going to tell you right now, I thought the second one's better than this one. So
Mhm.
guess what my answer is going to be? It's a pause. It feels like a love letter, you know, stitched together from multiple eras of the franchise. Yeah, you got those deep systems, you got a strong presentation in the story that rewards patience if you're willing to live it out for the long haul. And so, does this feel like the series is evolving exactly how it should, or still kind of figuring it out with way too many travelers? That is something where we want to know from you, the gamers. Are you vibing with Octopath Traveler 0? Are we dead ass wrong? Are you like, hey man, this was for those long form RPG commitment players? Knock it off, girl. Let us know what's good.